This is Inside the Americas, coming up. Joe Biden makes his debut address at the UN General Assembly. On the way, a look at the highlights of what the leader of the free world did and did not say. Then Canada's Justin Trudeau gambles on an expensive early election only to end up exactly where he was before it began, still Prime Minister, but without a majority in Parliament. And shocking images of U.S. Border Patrol agents wrangling Haitian refugees, just the latest in the ongoing struggle of thousands of migrants stuck on the Texas border. I'm Jeannie Godula. Well, fall in New York is synonymous with the UN General Assembly. This year's event was held mostly in person for the first time in 2 years. Over 100 world leaders came to town, including U.S. President Joe Biden, who made his debut UN address. It was a chance for Biden to promote America's wins and dance around some of the country's more controversial moves, as Yena Lee explains.
On behalf of the General Assembly,
in front of an audience of world leaders, Joe Biden insisted that he's not on a crusade against China.
We'll stand up for our allies and our friends and oppose attempts by stronger countries to dominate weaker ones. But we're not seeking, say it again, we are not seeking a new Cold War or a world divided into rigid blocs.
The U.S. president did add, though, that Washington will compete vigorously in the realm of geopolitics. Just days before the UN General Assembly, Biden signed a submarine deal with Australia and the UK. This to counter Beijing's influence in the Indo-Pacific. The Security Pact also saw Canberra ditch a lucrative deal with Paris, though the US claims that it had no intentions of sidelining France.
We're committed to working with our allies and partners, including in Europe, to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific. France, in particular, is a vital partner on this and so many other issues.
Putting U.S. interests first, even at the expense of angering close allies. Another example of this was seen over the summer in Afghanistan. The chaotic withdrawal of American troops and the rapid return of the Taliban resulted in a torrent of criticism for Biden. Despite this, the president stood by his vision that the U.S. is no longer the world's police force.
U.S. military power must be our tool of last resort, not our first. It should not be used as an answer to every problem we see around the world.
In terms of military interventions, Joe Biden is very much in line with his two predecessors. However, his vision for Iran is in sharp contrast to President Trump's. The Democrat spelled out his desire for the U.S. to rejoin the Iran nuclear deal if Tehran does the same.
Our number of the week is this one, 610 million. That is the record-breaking price tag in Canadian dollars for the snap election called by Justin Trudeau. The Liberal Prime Minister got enough votes to keep his job, but not enough to win his hoped-for majority in Parliament, leaving the country exactly where it was before. His opponents on both the right and the left slammed the election as a waste of time and resources, especially in the midst of a pandemic.
Back to square one. After a 36-day campaign, the breakdown of Canada's House of Commons has barely changed. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been re-elected for a third term, but failed to win a majority once again. On election night, he struck a conciliatory tone towards critics and those who didn't vote for him.
I hear you when you say that you just want to get back to the things you love, not worry about this pandemic or about an election, that you just want to know that your members of Parliament of all stripes will have your back through this crisis and beyond.
In August 2021, Trudeau and his Liberal Party were surfing on a wave of popularity, boosted by his COVID-19 federal aid programs. Though his second term could have lasted until 2023, the Canadian Premier decided to take a gamble and proposed snap elections.
I'm asking you to vote for real, progressive leadership.
Behind his gamble, an attempt to win back a majority he lost back in 2019 after two major scandals. Photos of him in blackface and a former Attorney General accusing the Prime Minister's office of exerting pressure over a corruption case. Since then, the Liberals have had to cooperate with smaller parties to pass legislation. Despite a record-breaking $610 million price tag for the 2021 election, one poll found that 3/4 of Canadians thought that it was unnecessary. Some critics say it was selfish of Trudeau to call on voters during a fourth wave of COVID. The Premier, though, insisted Canadians should have their say on how to end the pandemic. A key component of his campaign was vaccine mandates for federal employees, as well as hiring new healthcare workers. Trudeau also promised to tackle climate change by cutting carbon emissions. As for reconciliation policies with Indigenous communities, the Liberals say they'll confront the legacy of residential schools. Indigenous leaders, though, warn that COVID-19 and its economic fallout has shifted attention away from their causes.
Some shocking video came out this week of U.S. Border Patrol officers on horseback wrangling Haitian refugees. The migrants were some of the thousands camped out on the Texas-Mexico border. Many of them have already been forced back to Haiti by the plane load, prompting criticism from around the world. The UN says the deportations may even go against international law, as Ellen Gainsford reports.
These images have sparked an investigation by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Border Patrol agents on horseback, grabbing and chasing down Haitian migrants. The Vice President has joined in the criticism of their actions.
I fully support what is happening right now, which is a thorough investigation into exactly what is going on there. But human beings should never be treated that way, and I'm deeply troubled about it.
The situation at the US-Mexico border is causing outrage on both sides of the aisle. Republicans are blaming lax security after more than 15,000, mainly Haitian migrants, crossed into the country in recent days. The governor of Texas says he's launching his own crackdown, while many Democrats have criticized the use of a Trump-era pandemic policy to deport the migrants. The United Nations top refugee agency says the expulsions could be illegal under international law.
We are seriously concerned by the fact that it appears that there has not been any individual assessment on the case, and that therefore maybe some of these people have not received the protection that they needed.
So far, more than 6,000 migrants have been removed from the camp. Many of the Haitians have been deported before they've had the opportunity to request asylum, return to a country that's still devastated from August's earthquake, and politically unstable after the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse in July.
Our picture of the week is this one. Two dancers in Buenos Aires at one of the city's famous milongas, where people turn out to dance the tango. Those places finally reopened this week in Argentina after a year and a half shut down due to the pandemic. The country is slowly ending its restrictions this week, putting a stop to its mask mandate outside and opening to vaccinated foreign visitors starting in November. Foreign travelers can also go back into the U.S. starting in November. The White House said they finally could come back if they are fully vaccinated and undergo testing and contact tracing. Olivia Salazar-Winspear has the details.
Back in the USA, as the country opens its doors to vaccinated foreign travelers, bringing an end to the travel ban put in place by Donald Trump a year and a half ago. The Biden administration had been in talks for weeks with London and Brussels, with pressure on all sides to ease the restrictions that were prompted by the pandemic.
In early November, we'll be putting in place strict protocols to prevent the spread of COVID-19 from passengers flying internationally into the United States by requiring that adult foreign nationals traveling to the United States be fully vaccinated. Obviously, this is the conclusion of a policy process on that particular issue, an important one facing many people around the world.
The measures affect foreign travellers who've spent at least 2 weeks in the 26 countries of the Schengen space, the UK, Ireland, China, India, South Africa, Iran and Brazil. When they arrive, they'll have to present proof of vaccination, a negative COVID test taken in the previous 3 days, and provide the airlines with their contact details so they can be traced if necessary. This will exempt them from any quarantine on US soil. Unvaccinated Americans will be able to travel and re-enter the US, but will be subjected to pre-travel testing and will have to prove they've purchased a home test to be carried out on arrival. Children will be exempt since many are not yet eligible for vaccination. Despite this latest news, strict regulations remain in place at the Canadian and Mexican land borders, with a ban on non-essential travel.
We'll leave you now in Los Angeles, where Oscar-winning actor Tom Hanks helped inaugurate a new museum devoted to the magical art of movies. Hanks is on the board of trustees of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. That's the organization that hands out the Oscars, and it spearheaded the museum project. Inside, it is a film lover's dream with all kinds of movie memorabilia. The ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz, the rosebud sled from Citizen Kane, and an R2-D2 model from Star Wars. That's it for this week. Don't forget, you can always check out Inside the Americas online, and we'll see you again next time for all the news from north to south.